Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our Sexy Vampire Retrospective with the Luigi Batzella 1973 opus, The Devil's Wedding Night. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen The Devil's Wedding Night. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the Alex Van Helsing series from HarperCollins. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth Studios, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire, and co-creator of Clockworks from Humanoid. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin is Mr. Drew Edwards, editor-in-chief of HorrorMovies.net, where you can find this show and a delightful lot of other excellent content. Writer for Rockabilly Online and creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
Hello. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Okay, The Devil's Wedding Night is a 1973 film about a young scholar, Mark Damon, who discovers that the famed Ring of the Niebelung, which they love to say, may exist and can be found in the Carpathian Mountains, and no sooner does he begin to plan an excursion to find it for science, his twin brother, also Mark Damon, sets out to retrieve the ring, stumbling upon the evil plans of Countess Dracula, portrayed by Italian actress Rosalba Neri. That is The Devil's Wedding Night. That is the movie that I forced you guys to watch during our vaunted Sexy Vampire Retrospective. So let's do it this way. Tony, I don't think you've started this off in a while, so let's get opening thoughts, a minute or so. Tony, Julia, Drew, and then if there's anything left, I'll say something. So Tony, opening thoughts, The Devil's Wedding Night.
I had fun with this one. I was thinking there's a lot of super surreal stuff, which I think happens in a lot of 70s vampire movies. And maybe that's what makes 70s vampire movies 70s vampire movies. It's trying to be kind of Hammer-esque. It's a weird kind of thing to be like, oh, we'll get this one guy who'll play twins, and we'll do this and that, plot twists and such. There's a lot of nudity, which I was surprised, since the only way to watch this is the Elvira version on the Shout channel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way we could find. So I was kind of surprised at how much nudity there actually was, and in comparison to some other movies, actually kind of sexy. So it didn't have any weird kissing, and I think first and foremost, it wasn't Dracula 2000, and that made me happy.
Right.
So I don't know. I kind of just got into the weird groove of it and enjoyed, it's no better or worse than
these are not. Tony, I think that the version that would have played on TV in Los Angeles for Elvira would have had the nudity edited, and then I think for the DVD version, which then is the one that's on Shout Factory, I think they've subbed in a print that includes nudity that was cut for Elvira's show. That's my theory, and the evidence I have for this is that when she makes references in her bumpers about scenes, and they cut to like the line in the scene, it's clearly a different print from the one that we've been watching. It's fuzzier and different colored. So that's my theory about why Elvira is a TV show, and yet there's nudity. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Julia, before we get your thing, I should explain. We all watched this in the Elvira version because The Devil's Wedding Night is a straight-up Italian horror picture made in 1973, but the way that you most likely are going to see it in the United States is hosted by none other than Cassandra Peterson as Elvira, who did a version of this film. In other words, it's the film, and then she's got an intro and little bits of comedy in between that she did in 1983. So we were actually watching a 1983 filmed hosted version of The Devil's Wedding Night from Elvira. So just to catch everybody up.
Yeah, thanks to Shout.
Truly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said thanks to Shout.
Yeah.
TV, either streaming or I have the Shout channel on my Roku, but man, I love that. I love it so much. There's so much awesome stuff on it. I'm really glad that Shout made this. They're pretty badass.
They are doing such a fantastic job. I mean, seriously, I every time somebody gets a Roku, I always say, "Oh, first thing you need to get is Shout Factory," and
Yep.
they don't necessarily get it right away, But if the moment they open it up and they see like there's all the MST3K, boy, you'd think that we were sponsored by Shout Factory.
I wish I was. They're pretty awesome, but I mean, I'm willing to shill for whatever's good.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah,
it's
for sure.
good, it's not shilling at that point. It's just like, hey, this is really good. If you like the things we like, check this
Yeah,
out because it's awesome.
you have to see this. Okay, Julia, uh, you could talk about Elvira. You can talk about The Devil's Wedding Night.
No, I have to disagree with Tony, like, so bad here.
Sure.
I mean, I keep thinking, movie, how I hate you. Let me count the ways. I can't stand this film. Can't stand it. Did I hear you correctly that you said that there is no weird kissing in this movie? Because this movie is like 5 minutes of just weird kissing. I was just like, what is going on with these people in different positions? In bizarro lighting, I don't know. It's just no. I did not care for it.
Not like the what was it? Vampires. Where
Yes.
it's just like, oh, don't do that. Don't learn from that movie.
I felt that way. I felt very cringy. I did not feel like it was sexy at all. I felt like the only thing that's sexy is the one shot where she like emerges out of that box with all the like weird smoke and everything. But other than that, I just no. And I'll say more, but no.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, I'll get mine in a moment. Drew, what are your thoughts?
I don't think I liked it as much as Tony, but I liked it more than Julia. It was sort of like watching a community theater group do a fan film of one of the Hammer Karnstein movies. That's like the overall vibe of this movie. It's fun. I liked how kitschy it was. It's very amateurish. It meanders a lot, but there's some stuff in it that looks good. There's some the big bald warty hunchback vampire guy. That guy's pretty cool. I liked him. Let me think. I did not find this movie sexy. I will go in with Julia. I hate to disappoint Jason yet again with that I did not find his sexy vampire movie altogether that sexy. But it was fun, and I found myself MST3K'ing it a lot.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of good setups because it's kind of a ridiculous movie, but it's ridiculous in an endearing way. Like I enjoyed it. I would not recommend it for anyone that is not already like a big horror fan. Like if you're just kind of like a casual horror fan, this is not a movie for you to watch. But if you really like horror movies and you'll kind of take your horror fix however you're gonna get, this is a good like tracer to some of the 70s Hammer movies. I think it's, like I said, it reminded me a lot of like a low rent version of one of the Hammer Karnstein films.
I think that's getting at my feeling about it. I if you look at the Hammer Karnstein movies, even at their trashiest, like Lust for a Vampire, those movies really do have some class and some money on the screen. When you get to stuff like this, I mean, you said you couldn't possibly watch this movie if you weren't already a horror fan. I think you have to be even a little bit more esoteric than that. If you're going to watch this movie, you have to be ready for some grainy, grungy, trashy Euro trash, basically. And I have kind of loved this whole genre since I first became aware of it in the early 90s, I think it was. Somebody, and it happened overnight because one day I brought home an Italian picture and it was grainy and grungy and the dubbing was bad. And I was appalled and I brought the tape back and I said, this is terrible. And then within a couple of years, somehow something had changed where I brought it home, and the same thing. I was like, wow, look at the grunge, look at the grain, look at the bad dubbing. And suddenly it had become a kind of art unto itself. I mean, what I love about pictures like this is that they usually play their vampirism totally straight. They're
Well,
usually shot. Yeah, go ahead.
it was very heavy on the Satanism, which I do like
Yes.
in a vampire movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, and there's usually lots of there's 1970s sexiness and lots of awesome clothes. There's usually practical castles. Like the castle that you see in this movie is I can't remember the name of the castle right now, but it's one that shows up in a lot of Italian horror films. So it's a perfect example. If I were to say, if someone were to say, "Hey, Jason, tell me of an early '70s Italian horror film that I should watch," you could do worse than to watch The Devil's Wedding Night as an example of the form, for sure. And as with all of these,
What could
usually
what
the
could you
movie
do
is
worse?
one
Like
that
what would you do worse? What is worse than this?
I'm here's why you could do worse. This movie is just okay through all of it, but there is one sequence where where Countess Dracula is bathing in blood and she rises up out of her
Right,
sarcophagus,
that's what I was saying that I liked too. That one shot.
twisting like the lair of the white worm, with the smoke going all around her and the blood dripping down, and she literally looks like a Boris Vallejo painting. That is an amazing composition, and I've said many times before that I can often suffer through a movie entirely just for like one idea or one image, and this one has at least that one, and so so I give it. You could do a lot worse. I'm trying to think what worse would mean, and I'll come up if I can. I will come up with a worse Italian horror film.
Well, I
In
think
fact, maybe our listener will suggest some truly terrible Italian horror films.
I mean, there's plenty. I've seen a bunch.
I mean, I was
Well,
gonna
then
say
not too,
Torso,
right?
but
Well,
Torso is really good.
The thing is that, like, I don't know, maybe I was too enthusiastic. I'm leaning more towards Drew.
Sure.
And I agree with him that, like, this isn't. I really don't think this is the one. If you're gonna, like, oh, you should get into Italian horror, like, or you should get into
No, this
into
isn't
the esoteric
Suspiria.
vampires.
I mean,
like,
sure. Yeah.
this isn't it. And that's part of what I was saying is that, like,
And yet we're doing this episode and we haven't done Suspiria. What does
But
that say about us?
I
not
like
vampires.
this movie, for instance, better than Baron Blood. I know that might be uncool to say about the oeuvre of Mario Bava, but I think this is a better movie than Baron Blood any day.
It does have a really great title. I mean, this may be the best title for a vampire movie I think I've heard in like a long time.
What, the Devil's Wedding Night?
That is
I
a
really
great
believe that
movie
it should have
title.
it should have been called something like, honestly, The Ring of Dracula, or even The Ring of the
No,
Niebelung.
Devil's Wedding Night is an amazing movie title. Bite your tongue.
yeah. Also, there is that. Like, there's a satanic wedding thing going on.
Oh yes.
Full of a black wedding dress and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty awesome.
Oh my God, she's got a black veil. It is so great.
Like, the whole wedding dress is like that. That stuff is cool.
Yeah.
Does it make the movie that much better? Not really. But
Well, but the thing is, okay, so I don't know if you want to go in order or whatever, Jason. But
We're about to go in order, but go ahead and count it as part of your opening thoughts. Where are you going to go?
Well, no, I mean, like, there's things that to me that has the potential of coolness, and then they drop the ball on it because, like, that wedding had so much potential to be way cooler, and then it ends up not really being a thing. Like, it's a nice costume, but there's nothing. There's no wedding. There's no nothing. And then there's the virgins. Like, I don't know, that whole. Well, we'll talk about it more. But I just feel like there was so much potential and that was lost here, and things that they could have done that would have been so much cooler than what they ended up doing, which is just weird and disturbing.
Okay.
Anyway,
I don't think
yes,
you're wrong.
Excellent point.
But I do think it is. It depends on if that's. I don't know. I've seen so many of these. This is just it's par for the course. I don't know.
It is a problem in a lot of these Italian horror films of the mid-century that things do not pay off. Which I don't I don't know what that's about, but it is a true thing that stuff will be brilliantly set up and then will just sort of go nowhere. But
Well, I think what we're really saying is, Julie, if you just start rummaging through Jason's Italian horror DVD section, most of this you're going to be like, you can put all of these back on the shelf.
Right.
Just keep those where they're at.
Yep.
So let's begin at the begin. We start out in, I presume, Germany in the 1800s at some time with two brothers who are meeting up in the really rich swell house of Carl Schiller. You have these two brothers, Carl and Franz, and one is, oh God, one is the scholar and the archaeologist and the professor, and the other is the gambler who loses all of his money and is a woman's, a ladies' man and all that stuff. And they're both played by American actor Mark Damon, who is dubbing his own English lines such that it appears that he originally recorded them in a different language. It is the weirdest thing in the world. But yes, we've got them. I thought the split screen was not bad. You know, it's an extra level of special effect that a movie like this probably, can't afford to waste too much time on. Mark Damon's doing a pretty good job of making the brothers, at least in these early scenes, doing a pretty good job of making the brothers into two very different people.
Both
as the
insipid.
movie goes on. Huh? Go ahead.
Two different people, both insipid.
Yes. Well, my favorite is the scholar Carl. So we find him first reading about this magic ring, this legendary ring, the ring of the Niebelungen, and he's reading about its immense power and how it can do all these things, and the last person to wield it was Dracula, and it's a big ass red ring, and he reads that description literally twice. And here's the funny thing: his brother comes in. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
I loved the business of giving a backstory because, I always think of how, you look at some of the later Universal horror films, they would always make such a show of Dracula, that Dracula's ring. Dracula's ring that he would use to hypnotize people. And I kind of love that this movie, this is why I kind of almost think of this movie is filmed fan fiction, because it seems like almost like they were trying to come up with a backstory for why Dracula always has this ring on.
That's more or less the MacGuffin in Clockworks as well, by the way.
Exactly. No, it's precisely this ring. Yeah, it fell from the sky, and in our comic in Clockworks, yes, precisely the same. The machines are powered by a special rock that fell from the sky.
That could be controlled by Dracula. We missed out.
Well, now you can find a way to tie in you can find a way to tie in sort of Dracula, and your universe is all one.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
New direction.
Man, I'm stealing this thing like next week. Just you watch.
Anyway.
Here's these dudes are sitting there, and like I say, Franz is going, I've lost all the money, so I hope you can figure out a way to bring in some money, brother Carl, because you're the responsible one. Carl's like, I want to go out and look for this priceless magic ring that I think may have belonged to Dracula, and the gambler is like, great, we'll get the magic ring and we'll sell it and we'll pay off all our debts. And Carl is like, no, get this. He goes, I shall constrain it. This is a direct quote. I shall constrain it straight away to the Karnstein Museum of Archaeology to keep it safe and secure. And I'm thinking, as a student of vampire films myself, that does not sound like the organization to give something like that to.
Yeah,
that sounds like a that is, and it was just a drop in. It's just there.
Yeah. So I wonder what if we were gamblers. I wonder what the over under would be. He's like, no, brother, let me take the stone. Then, cut to a month later, he's like, you took the stone to the museum, right? Oh yeah, that's why I have a new house.
But if you had that ring, you wouldn't sell it. You'd use it to start like ordering people around and forming your own army and stuff like that.
The gambling guy would sell it because he would. that guy is gonna be like, man, you know what? I got a new carriage and I got paid for a lot of rent, and look at all the gambling I'm gonna do in the future. Woohoo! Yeah, no, that guy's not responsible. He's because he wouldn't know. He wouldn't believe that if you're that hardcore, you're gonna go for it in the moment. I'm just guessing. And like, yeah, I can control people. Man, you're offering me what? 500? That sounds great. Ring away. As the guy goes, and the guy who gets it, of course, controls everyone, and like, he
of course,
sees him at the gambling den, and he's making all this other. He's curses.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
That's how I see that happening.
I should have
in a second movie.
I should have held on to the ring. I mean, they do say it a lot. They give us, like I said, they give the description twice. They say the name of the ring like 3 times, so that you've got it. It's the ring of the Niebelung.
I kept thinking of Fletch when he's like, it's Dr. Rosen, Dr. Rosen, Nibbling.
Well, yeah, Elvira can't say it either.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cassandra Peterson is like, they've got the ring of the Nibbling. So, okay, we should take a moment also, since we're talking about the beginning of this, and talk about this creature called Elvira. All right, so I don't even know if young people know who Elvira is anymore. And it's so odd to think that Elvira existed about, in decades after most of the shock theater stuff had come and gone. And then, because shock theater came around in the 50s, and the way it would work, you work at a local TV station in Atlanta or Dallas or wherever you are, and shock theater would send you the tapes, and you would have these donut holes to go around the commercial breaks, where your local guy would, if he chose, he could produce your little intros and have your little local monster host, and that person could become a celebrity and open grocery stores and cool stuff like that. And this was replicated all over the country. And Elvira was like 20 years after that. So
yeah, but Elvira was a pop culture icon in the 80s and 90s. I mean, she was on Budweiser ads.
But I mean, she had to come from somewhere. Everywhere. And this was also
no. And she's definitely part of that lineage. But I'm saying, like, she took it bigger than most of those other horror hosts did. Like, she was a national celebrity instead of a local celebrity.
That's probably
like her. I mean, she has an awesome shtick. Like, she's really funny. She's really talented.
Yeah.
And Cassandra Peterson, by all accounts, is just awesome. Outside of being Elvira. But I mean, she has the look that, like, there's a reason why you're on, Budweiser ads. And like,
yeah,
she totally plays that up. There's no nod wink about what makes Elvira. It happens to be that she's also super, like, really funny and has like funny things to say, and is a really good host on camera. But she's totally playing up all of the assets that make Elvira.
She is, but I have to say, a lot of times
more people are going to watch Elvira than they are your local kind of craggy looking dude.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That no doubt about it. Like the guy from Sir Cecil Creep, right? Who was the Phantom of the Opera and guys like that. For sure. But at the same time, These lines are stupid. I mean,
No,
she
no,
is good.
But
She is good.
they're corny. They're corny on purpose. Like they're delivered in that way. Like the jokes are corny, but they're endearing. Like I
guess
don't
that's-
think that I could have. I don't think I could
I
have
agree.
bared. I don't think I would have been as happy about watching this movie if I wasn't watching it with Elvira, because that hit a lot of nostalgia.
You know, I
But-
agree with you about that.
And I
I
think
agree with
she's
a lot of
also
fun.
like
It's
she did
great.
a lot for like having she was a female horror host,
Yeah.
which is a big deal. Like
Yeah.
for the most part, you had people kind of aping Grandpa Monster, and or just weirder.
Well, I mean, let's not forget Vampira, who a lot
For
of her
sure.
shtick is.
True. Well, I mean, I think that's where it came from.
But she made Vampira funny. I mean, well, Vampira may have had some humor to her, but Elvira, with her accent and her just the sound effects, and there's a goofiness to her shtick that I think was really unusual. But again, Vampira was around in '55, and this is 1983 when we're watching this episode with her.
And I think you're kind of onto something. There's a certain what's kind of cool is there's a certain she has her character has like a naivete that's like, hey, I'm just here, I like horror movies, and I'm being exposed to horror movies, and this is kind of weird, and like the through line, her whole shtick is that like kind of outsider, except she's dressed like somebody who loves horror and should be in a horror movie.
Yes, that's for sure.
I think that's pretty awesome. Like,
I love her commentary. She gives you funny. So, like I say, her shtick lines are dumb. Her comments on the movie are usually pretty sharp. Like when she'll say something like, "I want to hear that description of that ring again," because yes, they gave it to us twice. Or the whole thing about later on when the gambler winds up in a hotel and. He says he can figure out a way to protect the young woman from a curse on virgins. It's.
I want a tall beer and a soft bed.
yeah.
all that stuff. So
Wow.
yes,
That was great.
she's doing a good job.
I think she still does stuff, and that's awesome.
No, yeah, I think she's fantastic, and I actually grew up. My dad was always a big Elvira fan. I can't imagine
Was
why.
he really?
And I just associate with him. One time he was like, "Oh," I said, "Well, where have you been, Dad?" He's like, "I went to see a movie," and I was like, "What movie?" And he's kind of like, "None of your business." And I was thinking, Dad, what are you like? I was immediately like suspicious. Like, what has he been like? Seeing strippers? Is he having an affair? Is he doing drugs? What the? He's like. And I'm like, Dad, what? What movie? I start getting mad. He's like, an Elvira movie, okay?
Which isn't a great movie, but has all of her shtick in it.
That was really funny.
It is not a great movie, but it's everything you kind of want from this kind of late night Elvira stuff. And that's, I saw it much later than it was out in the theater, but I don't know. I think Rain and I watched it a while back. I don't know.
I don't think I've seen the Elvira movie. That movie.
There's actually two. There's Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Elvira's Haunted Hills.
I did not know there was.
I don't know which one. I don't know which one it was, but
Elvira's Haunted Hills came out a while. Much like about a decade after the first one.
Oh wow!
So
I had no idea.
But I had the pleasure of meeting Elvira when she did the Dallas premiere of that, and she was a really funny lady in person too. So
that's cool.
Elvira retrospective maybe sometime later this year.
It's really not a bad idea. And again, since we keep touting Shout Factory, they've got lots of Elvira. And that's at least they got like 4 or 5.
There's a band that
Elvira. I didn't find the vampires in this movie sexy, but Elvira is sexy.
Yeah, no, she's awesome. This band I know, Ghoul Town, they had her in their video. So
No kidding.
it's a fun video too. She just seems awesome.
She also shows up on a number of documentaries in her regular human, Cassandra Peterson guise, just to talk about movies and stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, right away after this conversation between the two brothers, Franz the gambler twin just heads straight for Transylvania to go find this ring. And you have to admire the bravery of this guy, that he's like, well, my brother told me that this ring is somewhere in Castle Dracula in the Carpathian Mountains, and that sounds like a place I ought to be. And so off he goes. And, he gets all the way to Transylvania, and he goes in to get a room. They have that scene that's in every single one of these movies where he tells all the local yokels in the bar, oh, I'm going to Castle Dracula, and then they're mean to him. And then he like in this and this is Mark Damon once again playing the sort of the dapper, handsome gambling guy. He finds out more information about the local vampire trouble by, he goes upstairs with the maid, and she gives us the plot, basically. There is a castle. There's a countess in the castle. The countess is somehow involved in this ritual that's happening where 5 virgins are drawn from the town, and they wander up the hill to the castle, never to be seen again. And
then he's like, oh man, I need to be at that castle.
Yes.
I was on the fence. You have sealed the deal. Here's a check.
And this is just so
like a greeter, because who far be it from me? I need a little extra cash. Maybe you need a greeter at the castle.
You need a greeter. Yeah, he's, there are movies like this, like Malenka. That's another vampire film that looks and sounds almost exactly like this one. And there's always this level of like truly dumb mid-century, like proto James Bond kind of sex stuff. Where proto is the wrong word, but I mean, like, in this case, he's going to have sex with the innkeeper's daughter. For no particular reason other than we have time to kill in the movie. The sex scene isn't even on screen. I mean, basically, it's just like we don't have anything else to do with this character than to have him, hit on the innkeeper's daughter and succeed. So
yeah. See, that's again okay. So that I just
please.
That scene, it's like this. She's all there's all these virgins that have to come every year. They just come on their own. I don't know what happens. And then I'm thinking, oh, that's a perfect opportunity for him to go. Well, we can take care of making sure that you're not, high risk right now. Whatever.
Yes.
It's like there's all this potential for like clever little whatever things. Then she ends up coming to the castle with all the virgins anyway, or like after. But she's not one of the 5 virgins. She's like an extra virgin, or maybe not
really
now. I don't know.
That, you're right, she does. Yeah.
It's just that whole thing.
Get him his magical Egyptian amulet that's supposed to protect him from.
That was like completely. I mean, useless. That amulet. It's like they're just waving it around. Nothing happens.
Look, somebody's Etsy shop was cranking those out. So. I mean, look at it. Like, just give it a go. Just, I mean,
the way said that he got that amulet in Egypt, so it is an Egyptian amulet that wards off vampires. For what it's worth, for what that's worth.
In case you need it to be more convoluted and strange. So get this, brother of mine. I got this from some dude who said it was from Egypt, and it wards off vampires. So
I actually really liked the conversation between the brothers about how, well, aren't you scared of vampires? And he's like, dude, whatever.
So you got this.
That was kind of funny.
Vampires around?
Yeah.
No, then obviously it's working.
Well, and they obviously live in a world with vampires. For heaven's sake, he's going to give this damn thing to the Karnstein Museum, Which, imagine in this world that the Karnstein family has continued, all right, and is now a super powerful gangster vampire family that runs museums and probably foundations and stuff, and people don't know they're vampires. That's really cool. I mean, that is a tremendously cool idea that is just tossed in there. And there's and in with as with a lot of pictures of this time, there's the notion that we don't believe in vampires unless you happen to be walking around in Transylvania, and then everyone believes in vampires. It's exactly what Gecko says. What Seth? Not Seth Gecko. Which one is the Clooney character
Gecko.
playing?
Seth Gecko is
Yeah.
like, I don't want to hear anybody that anybody doesn't believe in vampires because I don't believe in vampires either. But I think we
Right.
can all agree what we saw is a fucking vampire. And it's solid logic if you happen to find yourself in a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's anyway, the gambler brother has sex with the maid. That's just to kill time. He gets up in the morning and he goes to the castle. He goes to the castle, and at the castle he is met by two
we
women
just say,
in succession.
has sex with the maid to kill time. Is it any surprise that a strong woman like Julia has any problems with this movie?
You're not wrong.
No, I'm sure that she has an
They're
appreciation.
consenting adults. Like, sometimes this
sure.
new dude comes with a cool ass amulet, and
Yeah.
you're really smitten with him. I mean, I don't know that many women personally who would be like, yeah, that guy with that amulet. But, not a lot of people come through this town, so maybe that's the novelty of it.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
does Mark Damon? How does Mark Damon rate? I mean, I'm sure he's no Gerard Butler, but
Well, he is a vampire. Eventually, he's a vampire, so he counts as a sexy vampire.
The thing is, he is an attractive person, but he is not a sexy vampire.
Right.
Because he's not. I mean, he's definitely attractive. He's a good-looking guy. But as vampires go, he's not very sexy because he's just he's like more like a manservant for I don't know. I just never.
He's kind of Dracula's holding, because he doesn't even get to be his full vampire. Like they're kind of using him to be a vessel for Dracula to return.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, also,
he does make for a really sharp Dracula though when they have him in the whole Dracula outfit towards the end. Like he cuts a good. Like he reminded it reminded me a lot of the Frank Langella Dracula.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
He also told her though that he was going to have a sweet ass ring pretty soon.
So
Niebelung.
I'm gonna have the sweet ass ring. You might, want to get with this before, you don't want to know me when.
Exactly. Franz goes to the castle. This castle, by the way, is the I just had it. It is the Castle Piccolomini. It is about an hour and 42 minutes outside of Rome. So, they haven't. You don't have to go really far. If you're in a production company in Rome, you're going to drive out west out east to the Piccolomini castle, and it's a gorgeous castle. Anyway, he meets two women. First, he meets this servant girl who looks a lot like Martine Beswick, the British actress who showed up in James Bond and a few others. She has dark skin and really luxurious hair, and then and she says she kind of leads him inside and understands that he's an architect. That's how he introduces himself. He's like, I will call myself an architect, and says, okay, wait here. And he kills like literally hours and hours and hours before he wanders back out and finds the servant girl who let him in is like literally laying in a coffin in the ground. And at that point, which is strange. I mean, that's one of the dreamier, more oddball details of this movie is that the vampires sort of occupy their coffins in just holes in the ground. I mean, I guess graves that they have that they have dug up and opened up the coffin, and they just sleep in the coffins, kind of exposed to the elements like that, in no fear, I guess, of peasants with stakes and torches
Well,
and
they
all that
have
stuff.
like satanic cultist people who kind of can watch the ground
Right,
for them, I guess.
right.
You know,
They've got all kinds.
What more could you ask
Oh,
for?
I'm sorry, Tony.
No, I was saying they got dudes with hoods and swords, and maybe women too.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
you
right.
can't see because
You're
they
totally
have
right.
hoods,
Those
but-
guards have got to be around somewhere. Anyway, as soon as that happens, he goes inside, and that's when he meets the Countess. So in the storytelling, he's spent a whole day in the castle. Now the sun's going down. The Countess has arrived, and he says, "You're not going to believe this. I met your servant. I wasted a whole day, and when I went looking for her, I found her in a coffin." And then she's like, "Oh, this servant," and the servant shows up. Now the Countess
Yeah.
is. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No,
Once
no,
again,
no. I was.
Yeah, but like once again, it's like they had again so much potential because it could have just been so much more shocking. Like if he had been like I saw your servant, and then he looks up and she's just staring at him or something. Instead of being like, oh, you mean whatever her name is, Matilda. I don't know. Like
She's
I don't
Laura.
know. I just feel like
The servant girl is named Laura, the zombie.
Yeah, every chance they have to do something that's going to be kind of fun and creepy or surprising, they kind of went, no, let's go with this other option. But that's the thing. But anyway, so then there's the I guess is this one they have no, they don't actually get sexy yet at this point, right? Or do they?
Well, no, but they're going to have to sort of spend an evening together. I should mention though really quickly about these two actresses. Esmeralda Barros is Brazilian. This is the servant girl known as Laura the Zombie because she doesn't speak and she just kind of does a lot of and she's the one who's seen in the coffin. The lead girl, the Countess, is Rosalba Neri, and she is also the lead in it's called Baroness Frankenstein, I think is the version that I saw. Or Frankenstein's daughter, sometimes you see it as. And that's a Lady Frankenstein is another title that you'll see it with. And that's a truly trashy film. So this is her kind of thing. She is very classy. She's very slick. She plays a good countess, and they begin this evening where she enters the gambling brother and Franz. I keep forgetting which is. She entertains Franz, and they dine, even though she doesn't touch anything. She has anything on her plate. They drink wine, and eventually it leads to this love scene. And this is the love scene that Julia mocked because it is hilarious because they'll be like, you'll see them face to face kissing, and then there'll be a cut, and then he'll be like rearranged so that he's like, his face is like coming in from above, and
it's weird, and the kissing was weird, and I just thought it was awful.
I guess again, I've been to enough Weird Wednesday movies that this was better than a lot of that, and so that's why I think I don't.
Your expectations are much lower than mine.
I'm not objective at this point.
Yeah,
I'm still like, well, better than. It was also again better than the weird trying to eat each other's face off thing we saw in Vampires.
I agree. I agree.
Really weird.
Yeah. Well, and this style of showing bodies in such a way where you just catch a few inches of flesh here, and then you have the people rearranged, and all that stuff. That's the kind of thing that used to happen in the 60s and 70s all the time. And movies like Top Secret, you remember, made fun of that like crazy. There was a hilarious makeout scene on the beach that dealt with this because you're suddenly like, wait, where are those extra feet coming from? What's going on? It was really wonderful. So, yes. So they get it on, and then as soon as that happens, she finally, I guess as the night is wearing off, she finally attacks Franz. and vamps him. And that is, or at least starts to. She bites him and weakens him. And that is just at the moment that the brother Carl finally makes it uh, to Transylvania. And in fact, during the sex scene, it's kind of hilarious because during the sex scene between Franz and the Countess, they keep cutting back to Carl on his horse, just sort of crossing the countryside, which I thought was unintentionally hilarious because they just keep cutting back to this horse, you know.
Yeah, it was odd.
Yeah. So he makes it.
Anytime they show somebody riding on a horse, the music
What is that true?
Anytime they showed someone riding on a horse, the music that they played seemed like they had borrowed it from an episode of Bonanza or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it
yes.
did not seem like music from a vampire movie.
No, it loses its mood sometimes.
Vampire Bonanza is yet another film that hasn't been made. This TV show that hasn't been made that perhaps should be.
Vampire Bonanza, yes. That's actually a lovely idea. That is truly a lovely idea. No, I mean, I'm not even being sarcastic. There are some wonderful opportunities there. I have a friend who says that he's
Klaus has to put down like Little Joe because he's a vampire. There's some pathos to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. And the idea of a great rancho, you know, where you've got like thousands and thousands of acres and all of these people who work for you and all of the attendant like politics and everything of having one of the great ranches of Texas, that actually would be really right.
It was Lauren Green, right? That was the father?
It was. It was Lauren Green and Michael Landon. And
Lauren
Pernell
Green
Roberts.
Like a Van Helsing rancher who's just like, I've seen all this vampire shit. You know, oh, man, why don't we have time to make all of these? Because I won't watch it, even if I didn't make it. I want to see.
So I hated, Jason. I hated the. You liked it, but I did not like it. The blood pouring on, like when he's just pouring blood on her. I just thought that was stupid. I thought it.
Laura the zombie does that. Like at that point, the brother is like out of it.
Yeah. Well, so then Laura the zombie. So it's like this movie was afraid to go full lesbian. Like it was like, I'm kind of gonna generally touch in the area of your breast, and I'm kind of gonna almost kiss you, but not quite. And then I'm gonna pour blood on you, and I'm just like, you know, commit or don't, or just don't even go there. But don't like give us kind of a.
It's a really good point.
You don't even know what vampires do, though.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that they're going to
I'm just being contrary. I just like this idea of like, I mean, yeah, that's what vampires do. I mean, how many vampire lesbians have you seen? You don't even know.
I've seen a fair amount, and I will tell you that usually they do more than this. That's true. It is strange that the one thing that they're afraid of here is lesbian vampires. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of lesbianism going on, but there's no lesbian kissing. There's
lots of petting, like heavy, petting, like lesbian heavy petting or
exactly. You know, and it's.
Whenever they do have any kind of sexual contact, it's so awkward and weird. Like especially at the end with the naked virgins, and then the weird like guard guys that are all covered. They would just like she would rip off the frock off of each of these girls, and the guard would just kind of awkwardly grope her. It made me so uncomfortable. Honestly, I felt like this is one of the few films where I've watched where I've actually really just felt like the actress was being violated, like the actress was being sexually assaulted. And I mean, I know they signed up for this job, but I usually am able to kind of suspend my disbelief enough to go, oh, okay, it's a person. But no, I was like, no, it's an actress who is being groped by a random actor. It was so bizarre and awkward to me.
So again, welcome to these movies. Like I understand where you're coming from, and again, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just saying that, like, having seen a bunch of these, all of what you're talking about is just like, I mean, that's what happens. You watch these foreign weird vampire movies from the 70s, and there's awkwardness and surrealism.
Well, that's one of the weird,
bizarre. Like you're like, oh, after the first couple, you're kind of like. Yeah, I guess that's what we do. Like, you know. And then the
Strange
rest is kind
paradox
of your
here is that
your adventure from there. Whether you choose like, oh, I'll watch more of these, or like, nope, I've seen enough.
Yep.
I call them these sexy vampire movies, but to be honest with you, it's very rare that these movies are particularly erotic. They're
which
usually a little weird and off-putting, but
which
I
makes
find
it
them
even
fascinating.
better considering you're like, what we need to do is sexy vampires, none of which will be actually sexy. So just let you the viewer know I've duped you. Ha ha. Now you've
Well,
come into
it's
my
more
trap.
complicated than that. I'm interested in finding I'm interested in creating with this list of films a dialogue about how eroticism is presented on screen, and sometimes it involves movies that fail spectacularly at creating the erotic. I think some things
Well,
on here.
I think you got to take in the context of when this was made, where it was made, who the intended audience was. Because I mean,
Yeah.
this is there's a lot of talk these days about grindhouse cinema and drive-in cinema and that kind of thing. This is a Z-grade movie. This was meant to play on like a double feature in CD movie theaters and turn a nice profit for the producer because it costs next to nothing to make.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of, and I'm not saying this from a standpoint of judgment because again, I did enjoy this movie, but it is kind of lowest common denominator cinema. Right. We have these movies now that kind of try to get this aesthetic, but they're looking backwards at it, so they're able to, it's not quite the same thing. There's a more deliberateness to it, whereas this was, it simply is what it is, as Tony's saying.
So, two things. A, fellow podcasters, how does it feel to be part of Jason's thesis project? Which I had no idea. Good con there, Mr. Henderson. I hope to be, that you list this in your findings. And then B, I will have to say that despite the weirdness, despite the awkwardness, etc., and this being the era that it is, give me hundreds of these as opposed to like recently I got like a free trial to like, Cinemax. Oh, it's late night movies. And man, it's right now, I guess it's just, they're just like, hey, here, it's porn.
Yeah.
Like straight up like, oh my goodness, you are the pizza guy. Like I watched like part of it. I'm like, oh man, there used to be like a drama and maybe the girl goes undercover. All the
Thank you for saying girl goes undercover. Yes. Right. So, she's a cop, right? She goes. This is like 9 different movies.
Yeah.
She
anyway,
goes undercover.
Like there, you got sort of kind of a movie when you were staying up late and hoping that your parents or grandparents or whoever had cable, didn't catch you watching these, movies up like late night Cinemax movies. Now that's not the case, but give me this weird awkwardness with some surrealism, with some actual like, hey, we're trying to do some other weird stuff, like satanic rogue people, and this guy's going to be the host for Dracula, and so he's going to lose his self by becoming Dracula, and his brother's going to stop all that stuff. Like, if you're going to have weird eroticism, at least give me that. Like, I would watch so many of these as opposed to what like Cinemax, for example, has become. And I think there's probably that on HBO or whatever. Like, at least there's something strange and like different. And even if it's not your bag, somebody was trying something. And
like I said, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah,
I do think the guys who, I don't know what the motives are of the money men behind this movie. I think they're probably dubious at best. But the people who actually sat down and wrote this story, I do believe there is a certain amount of affection for Hammer and a certain amount of affection for Universal, and like the Dracula movies that came beforehand, because it's there. You can see it in the in the script, and there's some little details, and that's the sort of thing that I guess pushes this movie over for me. But it's also the same reason why I said earlier, like, if you're not already invested in horror movies, or in particular like costume vampire movies, you know, like not even just vampire movies, because nowadays, you say vampire movie and that can mean a lot of different things. But like in particular, cloaked vampire movies like this, if you like that kind of thing, this movie has enough stuff from other horror movies that you probably enjoyed in this, that you will probably, it may not be a movie you ever really want to go see a lot of different times, but it'll probably entertain you for its running time.
I agree with you that this really is a classic vampire film, because when I think about different images in this movie, such as the guy who's becoming Dracula, or the moment when the Countess, the wind is blowing and she's waving her arms around, and there's vampires running around. It's a straight up gothic vampire film. It also has all this erotica stuff, and that's something that I definitely associate with Italian and French and Spanish horror, because it's not, even the British didn't have quite this much nudity, and the Americans certainly didn't. They didn't mix genres in quite this way. Let me just point out the sequence that Julia started mentioning, where Laura and the Countess start making out. And what that culminates in is Laura pouring blood all over the Countess. That, I think, is quite erotic. The sequence where the Countess is...
I totally did not think that at all.
Okay, so it didn't work for
think
you.
In fairness to Jason, if you were, and please shut me down if I'm getting a little too close for comfort.
I don't know where this is going.
If you were into blood play, which is a real fetish, I could see why that might crank your motor a little bit.
I'm not even saying that I'm into that particular fetish. I'm just saying that
I'm saying that I've seen a lot of things that involve, usually food, not blood, but whatever, that involve people pouring things on other people that is way sexier than this. I just think it was like weird. It was just kind of, standing really up high.
I did not find that sexy myself. Like I get where Jason's coming from, but to me, I did not find this actress particularly sexy. She's kind of boyishly built. She's got a very almost very stern face.
She does have a stern face,
which is worse because she's supposed to be like aristocratic.
Yeah,
but her physical type is not. It's no secret. I prefer a woman with a lot more roundness to them. So, her physical type was not something that I found to be attractive. But
I would call her very strong. I wouldn't call her boyish, but she has these really wide shoulders. There's you're right. She is a particular like aristocratic figure, basically.
So you mean the Countess,
I get why
right?
someone would find that scene sexy.
Yeah, she had kind of a Streisand vibe to me.
Totally. There was a lot of Streisand to her. Yes, I thought so too.
Hello, Dracula. Hello, Dracula.
So the brother appears and very quickly starts to investigate, and several things happen at once. We won't hit on every point, but let me just point out that at the same time that the brother is investigating he's investigating the gambler who is basically weakened, and is soon going to become the vessel for the revived Dracula. Basically, the Countess is planning a big ritual. That's what all this is coming to. Countess is planning a ritual. She's going to have 5 virgins from the city. She's going to use the body of the gambler and to become the reincarnated Dracula. And all of this is going to culminate on, at midnight. And it's up to the scholar Carl to stop it all before that happens. It is the quote unquote night of the Virgin Moon, and
So
you
my
know,
thing about the
yeah,
virgins
yeah. So
is
this is
that
your ritual where the virgins are. Yeah.
the word should have gotten out by now after all these years that don't wear a white nightgown and you're good. You're safe. Because they all are wearing these long white nightgowns, and so they just needed to have not done that, and then they would have been fine.
They get drawn into this. Well, the white nightgowns photograph beautifully. They look
Well,
ghostly.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
I think also once you're like, this is what I'm going to do, then you put on the white nightgown. I don't think you have a choice about that.
Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
point.
you think that they weren't necessarily wearing the white nightgowns when they went to bed, or maybe they were already selected and hypnotized by the time they went to bed.
I think
What
also
a funny idea.
those nightgowns are just kind of the standard.
Yeah, because think about it. They wake up in the middle. So like Tori wakes up in the middle of the night, and there's like a hypnotic voice at the window, and it's like, Tori, get up, Tori, and put on a white nightgown. And
no, I think those are just, it just happens to be that. But I mean, I think your theory, I mean, also in the village, if you're going to be like, why don't people learn? I'm sure that there's enough guys in the village who be like, hey, I'm just offering my services. You won't get vamped.
Those guys are always available.
That's so I think if I don't
even
think
vampires are not enough to get that guy any action.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
No, again, this is what I'm saying. If there was a way to avoid it, these guys would be successful. But obviously, that's not happening either.
Obviously, that's not the
case. I guarantee you that there's, man, at school, at college, in the field, whatever, there's a bunch of dudes who are like, hey, or catcalling as people walk by, like, hey, Virgin Moon's tomorrow night, I can fix it. Woohoo, woohoo.
Right. You're totally right.
And yet this still happens. So I think it's just, for better or worse, that's just the thing that's going to be.
I love your vision of, of Malf and Potsy basically shouting at people as they wander by this little Italian town going, we can fix you up. And they're like, yeah, get bit, Malf. So, okay.
Just like, good grief. Like, really? Every year? You do this every Virgin Moon. For how long?
Every Virgin Moon.
It didn't work then. I don't think it's going to work now. Come on. Maybe
so as Julia described, the way this ritual works, the 5 virgins have been brought in from the town, are all hypnotized. They're standing around. There's a big sort of vampire executioner dude standing behind each one. Laura the zombie comes and tears off their clothes, and she just kind of like just kind of touches their arms and like their chestal area a little bit, and then like the guy behind them, also not really that into it, kind of brushes his hands along her sides, and that's it.
Ugh.
I know.
It's so gross. I hated it. And then
somehow this awkward.
They're completely catatonic.
Yeah.
But then whenever they get chosen for whatever sacrifice thing they're having, then they're put on like a table, and all of the weird, they look like the knights that say knee from they look like the knights that say knee from Monty Python. They all surround these women. The woman just screams out, and then we don't know what. Then she's standing up again, and then she gets stabbed by the priestess, by the Dracula, whatever she is, Baroness.
Yeah, so I
Dracula.
don't know how perverted we're supposed to take that.
Yeah, but they don't even suggest what's happening because there's no naked person to be raping them. So, and there's no object. So I don't know what they're doing to these women that makes them scream, but they're not actually cutting them because they're not bleeding when they stand up. So it's just weird, and you're just like, why?
They're also pretty
what's going on here?
guards.
They're not very good guards.
When archaeologist boy, starts battling them, they all go down pretty easily.
Yeah, there's like 6 of them.
Once he picks up the axe, things really get like, at first you're like, yeah, whatever. But there's something about that axe. I don't know why that was a big deal. They're like,
I guess it's the axe of the Niebelungen, because he
yeah,
he beheads like 6 guards. It's like,
yeah, because at first
And they
you watch
don't
them and they're
bleed
like,
when they can. For a movie that certainly has been not shy at all about showing blood, it's interesting to me that I guess they
Yeah.
just didn't have the budget for it, but
I agree.
I don't know, maybe they wasted all their makeup budget making the one giant bald vampire, because that guy was cool.
oh man, yeah, we haven't talked about him. That guy's scary and
Yeah,
weird.
that dude,
Yeah.
that was my favorite part of the whole movie, was that guy.
The
Yes,
European
so
police of
we
all
should mention,
vampires.
outside of the main like bunch of guards, the red guards of Countess Dracula, there is this one guy who wears, I don't know, he wears like an Andre the Giant costume. He wears a big, a big sort of handmade shirt, and he's bald, and he's just a big bruiser vampire who serves the Countess, and he's like a wrestler. I mean, he's a guy, and
I am going to steal that guy to have Halloween Man fight him at some point.
Yes.
it needs to happen.
he reminded me of the equivalent character in Count Yorga, and I'm trying to remember the name of the servant in Count Yorga, but there was one just like that.
He sort of,
Because-
even though he didn't have the weird Beatles haircut, he also sort of reminded me of the Hunchback from the Fearless Vampire Killers.
But it's been a long time since I've seen that, so I don't remember.
It just says a similar grotesquerie about them.
Mhm. I mean, it's a common motif.
I
Yeah.
did like him chasing around, the brother, like when he's like, oh, I'm gonna stop, this thing from my twin. I don't want to become a vessel for Dracula. And this guy appears like, nope, that's happening, and chases him all around. It's like super violent. But
Oh,
yeah,
Bruta.
I mean,
Here it is.
yeah.
That character in Count Yorga was called Bruta, and he was a very, very similar character. Yeah. So, basically, finally, after the ritual, as with any movie like this, once the ritual is interrupted, and again, the purpose of a ritual: gather a lot of blood and do some blood magic, and eventually transport the soul of Dracula back into the body of Franz. Once that is all interrupted, the Countess heads up to the rooftop, which means we know the movie is coming to an end
Well,
pretty
it's
soon.
because archaeologist twin switched out with gambler twin.
Yeah, right. That was
I
brilliant.
gotta give this movie points. I was a twin. I guess I still am a twin. Normally stuff with twins in movies annoy the hell out of me. This somehow managed to not do that. So good on them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying thank you. I mean, I'm glad that I'm thanking you for them, for Mark Damon actually creating 2 human beings out of this. But yeah, we wind up on the roof for the final confrontation with the Countess, and yes, the girl from the village does in fact show up with the amulet, because Franz, the idiot, left the amulet in his hotel room, which I think is the funniest detail of any horror movie I've ever seen, which is that he has a magic thing, he leaves it in the hotel room when he goes out
So
on
do
his
you think
adventure.
he accidentally left it, or do you think he? Go ahead.
What is it,
He's
Joanne?
like waving it around during the sex scene, though, which was weird. With I don't know. That was I
No,
don't know if it
I
was
think
a
that was a
fantasy.
vision.
What,
I think that was a
I don't
psychedelic.
understand is, this is in Transylvania. This is a Dracula movie. Why not just put 2 sticks together and make a cross? Like, what's
Yeah, I
the whole
don't know.
business
Right.
with an Egyptian
Because
amulet?
it's not Egyptian.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
I see. I wonder if he was like, if he forgot it. I was like, oh crap, I forgot the amulet. Or if he was like, hey babe, want this amulet? I'll be back for it.
Right? so
Neither of
the
them
late
is good. Both of them are
Yeah.
plausible.
she brings the amulet, but and she helps the brother to defeat the Countess, and then they wind up together and they go away, in theory, happily ever after, she's like, I really liked your brother, the gambler, but you, Carl, you are, I like you too. You're pretty
I
awesome.
think what I can
So they
get.
get into, they,
I mean, you're
they're
cool.
riding off
I guess
together.
you guys are twins. Whatever. It's cool.
But
Well,
lo and behold,
she's a vampire. Dun, dun,
she's a
dun.
vampire. Yes.
Oh, and Dracula, or someone, maybe Dracula, who has appeared just randomly throughout the film in a top hat, shows up. Like,
Yeah,
as,
it's
like,
that
hey,
guy.
Yeah.
He's one of the servants in theory. You're right. He may be even more than that. He's this devilish character who keeps showing up on the road, and once Carl is dead,
Like a weird
this
stinger of music every time too. The
yeah
oboes.
yeah
Oh, his theme is oboes the whole time. Because Elvira mentions that too.
that's right, and he is actually credited in the movie as the mysterious man. I'm not making this up. That is how he is credited. So the movie has nothing to say about who this guy is, but he comes
Well,
in and scoops up
that
the
really
ring.
seemed like a direct lift from the Karnstein
Yes.
Hammer movies.
Wow, boy, Drew, that is. I mean, you're so right. You're totally right. It hadn't even dawned on me, but you're completely correct that in all those Karnstein movies, there's always the mysterious man on the hill, usually on a horse, and he's just going to basically swoop in at the end and and take from this whatever he can. He is the sponsor of all the badness of the Karnsteins. Um, so yeah, it's very much like that. Absolutely. So,
And obviously, they referenced the Karnstein family, so obviously, they were at least vaguely
yeah, they're
aware
more
of
than
those
aware.
movies.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Speaking of the way the story is put together, there is supposedly, if you look online, it says, "Oh, this is actually based on a short story called The Brides of Countess Dracula by Ian Danby." Let me tell you, if that story exists, it is not actually published anywhere. Because you can't publish short fiction today without it showing up on an internet search. It's just not possible. And I have not, so it may well have been just either I haven't found it yet and I'm going to find it like within the hour, or basically that story was never published and it was just an original story that he wrote for the cinema and sold it, and it got turned into this script. But yes, there's a hell of a lot of awareness of all kinds of like groovy other, you know, he's throwing the kitchen sink in here because there's vampires, there's lesbians, there's the Karnsteins, there's some Elizabeth Bathory stuff going on, there's Dracula, there's the freaking ring of the Nibelungen. It's so there's so much stuff, and I actually admire how much crap it's throwing at the screen. It's kind of amazing to me.
Well, it's ambitious, but they probably should have done another draft of the script.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, but that's the end of the Devil's Wedding Night, which again I feel should have been called something else like
No,
no.
stop it. You're wrong.
I just feel like it should have said Dracula somewhere in there. But okay, we should get our final thoughts.
It's a good title. Maybe this movie isn't that.
Yeah.
Maybe
exactly.
this movie does not live up to its awesome title, and that's what I think Jason's hitting on.
I find that true of a lot of these kind of movies, so that's okay.
I agree that it's an awesome title. There's a very similar film called The Devil's Nightmare. So this is basically just something they like to call Italian movies. And The Devil's Nightmare.
Maybe they were hoping there would be a sequel called The Devil's Honeymoon.
I guess so. Also think about it. It's 1973, so there's this whole exorcist thing that people are taking advantage of. Lisa and the Devil, huge movie. So yeah, that probably explains it more than anything else, is that you're in the middle of this big exorcist boom. So anyway, let's go, Tony.
As well is Devil's Couples Therapy.
I would read something called Devil's Couples Therapy. That sounds hilarious.
Yeah,
Tony,
but it just sucked as a movie. You don't. It's like, super boring. Doesn't even have lesbians, or well, it does, but that's part of why they're in couples therapy.
Okay,
Tail end
your
of the
closing thoughts,
70s.
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I am not as objective. I think perhaps maybe I was misunderstood as well. Like, this isn't a great movie, but it's exactly kind of what I expected. So I think it's got a lot of bits that are kind of cool, and I think I've seen enough Weird Wednesdays and just seen enough of this kind of stuff that I was down with it. And again, it wasn't Dracula 2000, so I was much happier regardless. So I don't know if I'd be watching it all the time, but I'm certainly down with the fact that we saw it and it had everything I expected, I guess.
Julia, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, I don't think it'll be any surprise to hear that I would way rather watch Dracula 2000 than this film any day. No, like I said, it's not that I don't like the genre or the time period. It's that I don't care for this film. I didn't think they did what they could have done with it. Because I do like, I like some of these simpler times, before all the CGI and all that. I think that there's some neat mood stuff that you can do, and there's some great things you can do with the practical sets and with the costumes and all that. And I just think that they, didn't achieve their potential by a long shot in this film. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
Outstanding. Okay, Drew, any final thoughts?
I think out of the 3 70s vampire movies that we viewed, this one was probably the one I enjoyed the most. It's a flawed movie, but whatever, like if you like a certain type of vampire movie, I think you'll find this entertaining enough. It's amateurish. I'm not going to say that it's not, but like I said, I found it to be kind of an endearing movie, and certainly watching it with the Elvira add-ons adds a deeper level of enjoyment for me. So I enjoyed this movie. I don't know if I will ever get around to watching it again, but I certainly didn't regret watching it either.
Wonderful. I will say I would much rather be watching something like this than any of the newer pictures. I find myself whenever I'm watching, a grungy old European horror film like this, I feel really, strangely at home. Like this is like the thing to be watching, for like a couple of bucks at something weird. It's just there's something special about the experience. And so if we're using this show to kind of expose people to weird stuff, I like spending some time on things like this. So I should mention also some titles from this director. The director of the film was Luigi Batzella. He also made a Django movie called Pistol for Django. He made a war film called When the Bell Tolls. He made the exploitation films Nude for Satan and Achtung, the Desert Tigers, and also something called Pirates of the Mississippi. I don't even know what that's about, but I love the idea of an Italian it's a movie called Pirates of the Mississippi, and it stars Italian people. I want to see that film. I have a feeling the film probably won't live up to what a splendid image Pirates of the Mississippi raises. Extra points if it had been called Achtung, Pirates of the Mississippi.
Oh man, that's a combo that I'm not sure the world's ready for.
Yes. Because then you'd have like pirates and Nazis. like
somehow
fighting
Indiana
on.
Jones has to fit into this. I don't know how.
Oh man, and Django.
Speaking of
like
in that, I know this is a total aside, but I've seen this title for a news article, and I just I think this is one of the best. It's up there with what you're talking about. Himmler's Witches Library discovered in the Czech Republic. And I haven't read it, but the Himmler's Witches Library in the Czech Republic, like, that's another movie I want to see. Like, preventing like people from using the witches. I don't know how this all works out, but yeah.
Himmler's Witches Library is one of the most delightful phrases I've ever heard.
I mean, terrible, like, objectively, everything leading up to that is awful. But those words put together are fascinating.
That's like suddenly that strikes me as like the best title for an unpublished essay by Virginia Woolf ever. It's
Himmler's Witches Library.
Himmler's Witches Library. Okay, so anyway, we should get our endorsements. If in case you have anything to endorse, this is the moment where we let people know what we've been watching, what we've been listening to, or whatever it is that we want to expose people to. Not to be distinguished from the show itself, which is very much the same thing, except for that I exert an sort of unnatural amount of influence over those choices. So let's go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. Tony, do you have anything to endorse?
Oh man, I've been so busy. I just wrapped well, not me, but our team wrapped Ruby season 4. So I haven't had a lot of time to view stuff. Although I will have to say, Rain has been reading a lot of Shirley Jackson, and we've been discussing that. And thank you also for that autobiography you sent, or biography.
Oh, I hope she loves it. I hope she enjoys
it.
it.
She was really digging it. But we've been talking a lot about it. And so people should go out and read some creepy Shirley Jackson stuff, because that's where it's at.
Beautiful.
That's going to be.
I read a great Shirley Jackson short story recently called, what was it? Forgive me. I think it was called The Beautiful Home, and it's about this girl who comes back to spend like spring break at the lovely lakeside home of her friend, but it turns really creepy and strange. And it was a short story. It was just fantastic. I mean, just fabulous.
He was
anyway.
A master of the form, so.
Yeah,
go read some Shirley Jackson. By way of my wife recommendation, because like I said, we've been talking about it, and she's really good, really talented.
Oh, it was The Lovely House. That's what it was called. The Lovely House. Julia, do you have anything to endorse?
I don't know. I mean, I really am loving my shows are back on, but that's just me. That with my Thursday night Scandal and Grey's Anatomy. But that's just, if you like them, you like them. If you don't, then you won't this year either. I really enjoyed this season, the mid-season finale, or whatever it's called, for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which we talked about a lot, as being just an awesome show that you should watch if you like comedies and or musicals, because this is a comedy musical, and it's a lot of fun. And the finale was really quite shocking. I guess it's the season finale, because I don't think they have another season for a while, or another episode. So yeah, no, nothing really earth-shattering, I don't think. I'll think of something, then I'll let you know.
Very cool. Drew, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, several things actually. I was very charmed to discover Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. It was recommended to me on Netflix based around some of the other movies that I watch. This is an Australian TV series which is strongly influenced by Agatha Christie and other mysteries of that ilk. It's set in the early 20s, or really more mid-20s, in Australia, with a middle-aged, flapper, feminist, golden gun wielding heroine that would be Miss Fisher of the title, and she's great. She's, if you like shows with strong female leads, you're going to enjoy this. She's very quippy. She's very stylish. It's got a lot of snappy patter. If you like, if you're of a certain age and you hate the fact that anybody who from their late 30s all into their 40s is usually portrayed as ineffectual or unattractive, you get this enjoyment out of it, is that she is the most alluring person in her universe. So there's that. It's just a charming show, and I mean I can't say charming enough because that's the best way to describe it. There's 3 seasons of it on Netflix. I'm sure they'll probably, if there are any more, I'm sure they'll eventually get it. The flip side of that, which it's funny because they're both kind of set in the same rough time period, but tonally they're completely opposite. I've been watching Peaky Blinders, which is a gangster show that's an original production of Netflix. It stars Cillian Murphy and Sam Neill, and it's about Irish gangsters in the early 20s.
Can you answer me a question? Why is it called Peaky Blinders?
That's what they were
That's
called.
that is the name of the gang, and they were a real gang. They were a real gang. They were a real gang, and I looked it up. The reason why they are called Peaky Blinders is they wear what we would call a cabbie hat or a driver cap, but what they called flat caps, but were alternately called peakies in the vernacular of the era. And they carried razor blades in their hats, which were used to cut out people's eyes, so they were blinders. So that's Peaky Blinders, which it sounds strange to a modern ear, but once you get into the groove of the show, it's just a really, really, really well done show. It's got Tom Hardy on it. It's got a lot of recognizable actors. Nick Cave must be making immense off of how much they use his music on the show.
So a couple things. I like the show. I also, everybody bags on the name, but that's not their fault. That's actually what they were called. So if you're like, it sounds like a stupid name, you're like, look it up. But I will have to say that the modern soundtrack, there's a bunch of it where I'm just like, man, I'm not into that.
Some of it works, cause Nick Cave, some of Nick Cave's stuff has a vintage.
Although I do want a moratorium on Red Right Hand, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is the theme. That is the theme song. I kind of like. No, you can't do that. Scream already did that. There was already a series that used that.
Name like a kabillion. That's one of those that I'm just like, enough.
No disagreement there. But I do like Nick Cave, so I'm not going to bitch too much. I'm a fairly big Nick Cave fan. However, they used PJ Harvey in the last episode that I watched, and I like PJ Harvey and all, but it was pretty jarring.
No, I like PJ Harvey. I think a lot of the choices really take me out of it in the way that they use them, because they're using it. It's not just that they're using it as a soundtrack. They're also usually trying to tie it in, which doesn't work as well for me. Like I could use, like, if I had a DVD extra of it, I would be fine with excising all of the modern music in it, even though I know that that's a choice they made. That's my personal opinion.
Some of it, like I said, some of it works better for me than others. Like it's generally like the stuff that sounds more like it could be of that time period works for me. But like, yeah,
I like the show though. I thought the show.
It's a very, very, very well done show. The characters are complicated. They talk about World War I a lot, which is not as heavily discussed as it once was, and I enjoy the show. On a selfish, shameless self-promotion note, there's a new Halloween Man special out on what we're calling Halloween Man Special. It's Halloween Man Special 4 out on Comixology. It is Halloween Man versus the Loch Ness Monster. I was very, very, very happy. Kevin Atkinson, the artist who drew this for me well over a decade ago, and he's gone on to do The Tick. He's done some issues of Illustrated Classics. You know, he's a very, very talented guy. He contacted me a while back and said that he had these pages in his garage, and I thought this story was lost. And Jason, you may remember you reviewed this story for your blog because I gave you an ash can version of it. But I thought that I was never going to be able to represent this story because the only files I have of it are so corrupted. But I was given new scans of the pages, and I was able to have it recolored and relettered, and it looks beautiful. And now it's up on Comixology, and it's only $1.99, and you can check it out. And if you like my other comics, you can see a earlier iteration of Halloween Man that is now, I guess, probably over a decade old, and you might get a kick out of that. And or if you just like cryptozoology, hey, it's got the Loch Ness Monster in it.
I have to say that was a very creative story. That was a really nice story. I liked it a lot.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Jason and I are also we know what over a decade can feel like.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, we've had stuff actually get purchased and not actually come out for 10 years, and it's mind-blowing how that can happen.
Kudos to you, sir, for
getting
that out. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I have two recommendations, one new and one old. By the way, so the use of Red Right Hand, I think the most frustrating thing about that is that I love it. I love the song, but every time it gets used, I always get the impression that the creatives who chose the song are like, this song will blow people away. No one's ever heard Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, this song's been used it was in the X-Files, for Pete's sake, which was a very popular show. You know, it was used in Scream. It's been used. There are other murder ballads out there that you can dig up.
There are 3 versions of it too. Like he made a different version of that for all 3 of the original Scream movies. So it's It's like it's not even like they
Scream what Extreme Ways is to Born. You know, you can't. So that today, if you have Moby's Extreme Ways, you can't use it. You can't just put it in your random spy show because that's the Jason Bourne theme. You know, whether they like it or not. And but I'm always frustrated by that. I'm like, come on. You can't. I think it's one of the frustrating things, probably for them, for a creative, to love this song, and they've been, oh man, I heard this song 10 years ago. I've been wanting to use it, and it's frustrating to them to know that like some other work has already kind of used it a lot, and it no longer has the power.
You can't cry ignorance on this one because it's been used in so many things.
Yeah.
Precisely. The only time I kind of felt like I could give it a pass, because it was so on the nose, they kind of had to, was in the first Hellboy movie. Like,
sure.
The only time I felt like I was like, well, okay, you know, this one time.
Well, sometimes the music will actually be funny. Right. That's a good example of a clever one. And likewise, you know, the use of Bad to the Bone in Terminator 2 doesn't feel ultra cool. It feels laugh out loud funny on purpose. And that, you know, that's forgivable. But I'm thinking, look, if you go into an awesome record collection, and if you don't want to do it yourself, find an awesome person and tell them to go into their record collection and come back to you with some cool have your bad guys walk slowly out of a burning theater music, and use that, because that will still be better than using Red Right Hand again, for heaven's sake. Okay. Speaking of people walking out of like burning buildings, there's nothing burning yet in this series, but it definitely is moody. We've been watching Riverdale, or as I call it, Riverdale Peaks. It is basically a reinvention of Archie with kind of the darkness and a little bit of the twistedness of Afterlife with Archie, but like way, way, way toned down, way less gross. than
Are
Afterlife
there
with Archie.
are there zombies?
Yeah, there's no supernatural. It's all it's a straight up kind of King's Row style soapy murder mystery thriller kind of thing. And but it does have the Archie characters, and they've moved Riverdale to, I swear to God, like the Pacific Northwest. So there's or some part of upstate New York that looks like the
So
Pacific Northwest.
it's like right up the street from where Norman Bates is living on the Bates Motel TV show.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
There's
and
a
there's like
crossover.
there's rivers, and there's train tracks and there's giant trees and when the police are out trawling for bodies, they got these big boats with flashing lights and everything has a sort of a graininess to it. Even though it's a high def modern show, it has a graininess to it that makes it look like it does feel like an old show. And I'm impressed by the look. I really am. So, I'm enjoying Riverdale, and so are both of the girls. Also, today I was just kind of killing time watching old bits of Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place. I know I've mentioned it before, but it's the funniest damn thing ever. Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place was a BBC series that you can find it all on YouTube, and it was about the guys who work in a hospital that has somehow it has opened up a hole into hell, and so weird demonic things are happening in the hospital. But the backstory, that's the story, but then the meta story of it is that the whole show was shot in the late 80s or early 90s, but was so shoddy and poorly produced and poorly acted that the BBC buried it and thought they had destroyed all of it. But then today, the best-selling author who created the show is creating new introductions and reintroducing the show because the BBC has simply given up hope and lost all ideas, and so they're going to play this forgotten old show. That's Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place, and it is so good. So that's something you should check out. Gosh, this is maybe the penultimate and maybe the next to the penultimate episode of the Sexy Vampire Retrospective, because we've got one or two more depending, and we are really thankful that you guys are listening. If you have anything to add to this conversation or disagreements or what have you, come onto the Facebook page, let us know. We will totally engage. And if you're listening and you're enjoying it, leave a review on iTunes. Tell your friends, capture your friends, drag them, on horseback
Don't do that.
To an Italian dungeon and chain them up and make them listen.
We just need like a boilerplate rider on our website that says whatever Jason says at the end, disregard that. He does not represent the opinions and thoughts of Castle Horror.
Please be sane.
I'm expecting Homeland Security to show up any day now.
No kidding.
I really am.
Sorry, Julia, we're going to direct them to your house.
Yeah, no, not my house. His office.
Neither of us advocate.
Yeah. Anyway,
I want to say I love how game Every was when I asked everybody what their vampire stripper name was.
Yeah.
All of y'all on the Facebook page, you just dived right into that, and I am proud of every single one.
Yeah, it was delightful. So, thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic week, and guys, have a fantastic evening, and I will see you guys next week, no doubt about it.
Good night.
Thank you.
Later.
Night.
Night.